Well, I just want to start with this. When you see this picture, what do you think? Balance? Yeah, absolutely. Structure? Yes, absolutely. I was doing this course with approximately 70 policemen fairly recently, and it was a course they were told they had to be on, so they weren't all keen on being there. And they went, oh God, it's going to be wishy-washy. It's a bit, it's a bit of that kind of balancy, bit hippy-dippy stuff. And it's a fair point, but I'd argue mindfulness is absolutely the opposite of that. Mindfulness is based in really hard science. It was developed originally by John Kabat-Zinn back in the 1970s, and it was used very much mindfulness-based stress reduction to help people cope with chronic pain. The results were so successful that they then extended it, and it's continued to develop as a process for a long period of time. And in the 1990s, it was developed into mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. So we now have several different strands of mindfulness. We continue to develop it, which is also why I love it. It's not a kind of scientific idea that has stayed still. It's as we've learned more about the brain and the mind and how the mind works. And as we now have things like MRI scans, we can see what's actually happening in real time in the brain. So we're now starting to really understand the science behind what's happening. So mindfulness is based in really hard science, and it's continuing to evolve. I'll explain more about it as we go through. So I'd argue it's not namby-pamby or wishy-washy. It's actually really hard science-based. What you can begin to do with mindfulness is strengthen your brain. So you stop it being as reactive to stress and stressors, and you down-regulate the stress response. So I'm using it on a daily basis to help people recover from long-term illness and from chronic stress. I also use it with GPs in a GP surgery, and we've just written a book that is based on mindfulness, a bit about reclaiming your health from functional illness. So I want to explain a bit about the science, because to me that's what makes it really resonate. Then I want to talk about the practices and principles, and we'll give you a go at doing a mindful meditation, just a nice, fairly simple, fairly quick one to see what you think. Be interested to get a reaction. And then I want to talk a little bit as we go through about mindfulness in the real world. Yeah, how do you put this into practice in reality? Because it's all very well as a theory, but what's the reality of it? And how can you actually start to use it in everyday life, and use it in your workplace, and use it to actually help you stay calm under pressure, and respond in the way that you want to, rather than do those knee-jerk reactions that we often do. So let's start with a challenge. I want to see if you can stay completely still in your chair and focused on your breathing and nothing but your breathing. So that's not thinking about the air conditioning, not thinking about other people coming in, nothing else, just completely focused on your breathing for 3 minutes. So how did you find that? Boring. Boring, oh my God, really boring. So there's a thought going on in your head. I'm bored now. Yeah, is that right? So would you be quite normal? That would be quite normal. Did most people find their minds went off somewhere else? Yeah. Where did your mind go to? Random places. And then did you manage to bring it back? How many people managed to bring their mind back when it headed off somewhere else and remembered to? Brilliant if you did. Fantastic. That's meditation. So you have just all meditated for 3 minutes. So for anybody who hasn't done it before, congratulations. That's a good start. All you're doing with meditation is you're noticing what happens to your brain and your system. So you're noticing how you feel, and you might notice, I am bored now. I'm doing this with kids. They go, boring. Yeah, really go for it. And absolutely, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a lovely thing that feels really relaxing. Sometimes you'll notice your brain won't stay focused, and most of us will spot that thoughts come in and thoughts go out. And then we suddenly remember we're meant to be focusing on our breath. We take our attention back to our breath. Literally every time you do that, you are building the left prefrontal cortex of your brain and making it stronger. When we do that and make it stronger, it is less reactive to stress and stressors. So fundamentally what you're doing is building your brain resilience every single time you bring your brain back to the thing you're supposed to place your attention on. So it works on a whole load of different levels. It's often really hard to stay focused. There are people coming in, there are all sorts of other things that are going to distract you. The brain gets distracted all the time. Studies from Harvard University showed that for 47% of the time, they looked at 40 million people, and it showed 47% of the time we are not focused on the task in hand. Our brain is off on something else. It's thinking about what we've got to have for our tea. It's thinking about the fact we're bored. It's thinking about the fact we've got something else to do later on that's much more interesting. Or it's back in the past thinking about that email that we haven't sent, and it's projecting into the future about the disaster that's going to happen because we haven't sent it. So very rarely do we actually spend time in the present moment focused on the here and now. So officially, The mind is the element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world and their experiences, to think and feel, and it's the faculty of conscious thought. And mindfulness itself is described by John Kabat-Zinn, who's the guy on the left, not the Dalai Lama, as a way of paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And he often adds another bit in there, as if your life really depends on it. And the only moment we've got is right now. And yet most of us aren't fully present right now in the present moment. We're off thinking about other things. We're off in our heads, we're worrying, we're ruminating, and we're not fully experiencing what's going on in this moment. So the people that use it, I mean, I could go into list upon list upon list of who's using it now. Yeah, they're using it in Parliament, and they really need to at the moment, I would suggest. The NHS, NICE, recommend it. It's the go-to thing for people who've had recurrent anxiety and depression. So if you've had 3 episodes of recurrent depression, they would much rather put you on a course of mindful meditation and start to train you up in that, because the success rate of preventing ongoing relapses is much better than it is if we give you serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so if we give you antidepressants. So they'd much rather not give you antidepressants and put you on one of these courses. We now know that the brain is constantly rewiring until the day you die. And the stuff that fires together wires together. So we start to create different neurological pathways. We create different neurological pathways very, very quickly, and they become habitual as well, so we start to use them a lot. You'll fold your arms the way you normally fold them. If you've done this before, remember this. And that's it, perfect. Does that feel okay? Now fold them the wrong way. How many of you does that feel really weird for? Good, if it does, that's great. Now unfold them and fold them the wrong way 10 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. On the whole, what you find is that by the time you've got to 10, it's quite easy, it's relatively straightforward. To make that into a habit, you need to keep repeating that for a while. But what you've just done is you've just rewired your brain. You've just created a different neurological network in your brain. It happens really fast. Now, that can be good and it can be bad. It often means that what we do is if we start to react under pressure and under stress, and immediately react to stresses on a regular basis, that becomes our default operating position. So you can train your brain to be less reactive to stress and stresses. And what it does is it promotes balance. So it provides stabilizers for the brain quite literally. It stops the brain zipping off down that stress route quite as quickly as it used to. It down-regulates the stress response. And it is not to say that you will not get stressed from time to time. Absolutely you will. You know, we're human beings, that's what happens. But your recovery from a cortisol spike, which is part of the stress chemistry that kicks off when we're stressed, will be much, much quicker. So you might have that hit of adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, which is what happens when we're stressed. You might activate that sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress part of the nervous system. But you'll reboot and rebalance much, much quicker. The problem with modern day life is that we get a hit of that stress chemistry when we are worried about emails we haven't sent, when we are stuck in traffic jams if we're reacting stressfully. And what most of us do in the workplace is we plow on through the day thinking we're going to be all right, and then by the end of it, we are exhausted, we're worn out, we get home, we want to yell at the kids or kick the cat. You know, we're in that kind of mood because actually we're just tired. So what you start to do with mindfulness is notice how you're functioning. And if you start to do that, you can actually keep yourself functioning really effectively right the way through the day if you want to. One way of checking how you're functioning is to do something called a body scan, and we'll have a quick go at that in a minute. But before we do it, I want to talk about posture for meditation. Get the posture right and the mind will follow is the quote. And the reason I want to talk about it is because fairly regularly when I'm doing this, people fall asleep, which is absolutely fine, but that's not the aim of meditation. The aim of meditation is also not to feel relaxed. It's not about relaxation. That tends to be a pleasant side effect of it, but that's not the aim. So a strong upright posture is a good one. Sitting tall in your chair is a good one. Your chin tucked slightly in if you feel like it. Your feet on the floor, both feet on the floor, although I quite like to sit cross-legged. So. And your hands supported on your lap. And it's just simply to get comfortable. But when you start to become fully aware of yourself and how you're functioning, then you can, if you want to, all day pretty much, stay here. Because what most of us do is we push our way through the day and we end up in this bit, the stress part of the system. And we're operating there. At that point, when we're kicking out those stress chemicals, the stress chemicals to that degree deplete our immune system. Our immune system won't be working properly. Our digestive system won't be working properly. And as soon as we start to be under stress and under pressure for any length of time, our neocortex, clever thinking brain, gets hijacked by stress chemicals. So we end up at this point working longer, not working smarter. So because we physically can't. So it's really useful to notice how you're feeling when you're at work occasionally. And if necessary, to take a break or do something that's going to get you back on top of your game. Because otherwise you're just wasting energy and you end up working longer, not smarter. Take a break, you can get your clever thinking brain back online again, your neocortex, your higher brain back online. You can start to operate more effectively and you'll get more done more quickly. Your ability to focus will go up. So you can actually stay here if you choose to. I will sometimes just do, in effect, a body scan, while I'm sitting at my desk. How am I feeling? Do I have tense bits? Do I feel okay? What's actually happening right now? Am I working at the top of my game or not? If not, what do I need to do to get myself back there? So all you're doing with the meditation body scan is just going up and breathing back down again. That's how you feel, how you function. And notice your breathing, because if you are breathing from up here, you will be releasing stress chemicals. So deliberately taking your breathing back down to here if you're feeling stressed, and breathing from your abdomen. If you breathe from your abdomen for 10 minutes, breathing approximately 8 breaths a minute for 10 minutes, you'll reboot your central nervous system and get it back into the calm part of the nervous system. What starts to happen with mindfulness is we begin to recognize that thoughts are mental events. They're not real, and we're not our thoughts. And thoughts are rather like buses. Yeah, we might get 3 at once, and then we won't get any. But we can also choose which bus we jump onto, and which one we follow to the end of the route, and which thought buses we let go by. So as human beings, we have the ability to choose how we think. We have the ability to notice how we're thinking and what is happening. And with that, we start to notice whether our thoughts are supporting us or whether they're not. And if we're really stressed, the way we think will be negative. So the stress chemicals change the way we think. They don't just change our body's physiology, they change the way we're thinking. So the way we think is chemical, it's biological, it's not always right, we get stuff really wrong. And thoughts are massively important because we have a negativity bias in the way we think. 2/3 of the neurons in the central part of your brain are designed to look for problems. So our brain will tend to look for the negative stories and make up the negative stories. The way we think creates our mood, and our mood creates the way we think. So there's a biofeedback loop going on there. What tends to happen is that thoughts create our moods. But we have a situation. Our interpretation of the situation is what then creates the mood, and we then have subsequent reactions. The issue is that most of us go straight from A to C without doing B. We're simply unaware that we've had that initial response, and this is the consequence. So what you start to do when you have mindfulness into the mix is you give yourself a gap, and you start to notice the gap in the middle, the B part. And when you notice that, you can decide how you're going to respond. Do I choose to get wound up about this, or do I choose not to? I actually have a choice. So how am I going to respond? What would I choose to respond? What's going to be best for me? What's going to keep me okay? Now, I put chocolate on the chairs. Has anybody eaten it? Yeah, okay. When you ate it, did you eat it slowly? Or did you just eat it pretty quickly? Anybody else? Often what we'll do is there's an exercise, we don't have time to do it, and I wasn't intending to today, but what people will often do as a mindful exercise is we will eat chocolate mindfully and take 3 minutes to eat a piece of chocolate. And that's a really unusual thing to do. And when I'm doing it with kids, they're kind of trying to eat it now. But what we do is you look at the wrapper, you look at how the chocolate is, you look at how it feels, you unwrap it slowly, you notice whether you're salivating, you notice how the hand comes to the mouth, how it knows to come to the mouth. You start to actually spend real time observing yourself eating and noticing what happens. And the point is not about eating good chocolate. The point is that most of the time we miss so much information because we are not present. Most of the time we just stuff that bit of chocolate in. And I had one woman when we did this, I did it mindfully once, and we did it as an exercise, and she said, I've discovered I don't like that kind of chocolate. You know, because she's used to just, you know, eating it pretty quickly without it. So one piece of chocolate gives a very good message. The message is that actually we are not present. We miss so much information, especially when we're power walking through London trying to get to the next place. You know, we miss lots of things that are around us. There's good reason for that. What happens with the brain is that we run on autopilot a lot of the time. The brain makes stuff just with the driving, you're unconscious and automatic as fast as it can, because it takes less brain energy. That frees up brain energy to work on other more important things like your survival. So we run on autopilot, we make things unconscious and automatic. Some of that's useful, some of it really isn't. We use behavioural blueprints. So the last time we went and did something, let's say gave a presentation, and we hated it, the next time a presentation is coming up, the brain goes, oh God, she hates this, it's going to be awful. And it starts to run the stress chemistry that it ran last time. Same with people and relationships. If we have a difficult relationship with somebody or have had in the past, the brain goes, next time you're coming up to have a meeting with them, oh God, it's that person again. And they immediately start releasing the stress chemicals and the expectation that it's going to be difficult. So we run blueprints. We make things habitual, spotted that with the arms earlier on. And we run on autopilot. Start to spot the autopilot and you can start to function at the top of your game. Often what we do is we're really nice to other people. You know, we spend quite a lot of time looking after them. We spend quite a lot of time making sure that they're okay. We have friends and we give them good advice if they ask for it, or we support them if they don't. We'll do our best by other people. We will often say, oh, you're really tired, you know, let's go and do something nice and relaxing. Or we'll be very, very kind and nice to them. How often are you kind and compassionate to yourself? We're often not kind and compassionate to ourselves. So we will say things to ourselves that we would never say to other people, and we'd never say to a friend. You know, I got up this morning and it was a late night yesterday coming back, flying back from Gibraltar, and got in late and was tired a bit this morning and woke up and thought, God, it's rough, you're looking rough, Janice. You're going to need lots of makeup today, it's not a good look. You know, I wouldn't say that to a friend. I wouldn't really say that to a friend. And yet I'll say it to myself and then I'll expect to feel okay. So my question to you is, what could you do to be more compassionate to yourself? At work, at home? How can you actually start to factor yourself into the mix? What's going to make a difference for you? Those times when you're under high pressure, usually the first thing that goes off the end of the list is looking after us. But actually it's the thing that needs to go to the top of the list at that point, rather than the other way around.